Yes, we are. Thank you so much, lady in the machine.
I'm so glad it's awesome.
Another Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Maryland, Sharon from Massachusetts, Diana from San Juan Capistrano, California. And of course, our Amber Jewell from the beautiful state of Kansas. Who did I miss? Anybody? British Columbia, Canada.
Ooh.
Awesome. Oh, we're international now. Boom, shakalaka. All right. So, all right. Amber, take it away, girl. Give us some hope and healing.
Awesome. So, Rhonda, I am super excited to be here, and I'm totally cool if we're running late, having trouble logging in, having trouble hearing. If I have the delayed look on your screen, it's totally cool, because is that not life to some degree? We've all probably been there, had moments like that, and the skill sets of those that usually attend these type of meetings, that's kind of a natural skill that we bring to the table. So being able to find tolerance and some joy in that is a great thing. And I always say that I have a lot of joy, even with really cold. So we're like negative 15, 20 degrees here in Kansas right now with the wind chills. We are not having school. The computers don't always work. Sometimes we just have things in life that's very frustrating, especially with COVID. And I don't know what all of you bring to the table, and that's not something that we have to specify right here, but we all bring something to the table. And a lot of people look at me and say, wow, Amber, where do you find joy in that? That is bloody cold. You are right. And they say, that was a comment in there about our temperature. Where do I find joy in this? And it's because joy is something that is way deeper, that people like you who work in human services, who work in ministry, who any of those components really played an essential role in my life. And I really feel like that's my calling today, is to talk to those of you who work in it. But this is relevant to those who live in it too, because I've been to both of those sides of the pendulum. I've had a really rough week. I've been thinking, gosh, why do I do what I do? I don't know if anybody else has ever had that feeling. You don't have to acknowledge it, but I've been having one of those weeks, like, should I be doing this? And then I wanted to start with this with a little story. I had a student come up to me. So I work primarily at a K-12 school. I had a high school female come up to me and say, you know, one of the things I've noticed about you, Miss Jewell, is that you smile. And it just kind of tells people like me that I don't have to come in, but I'm here. You're here if I want to. So you're providing that opportunity to me. And I thought, woo, my week is worth it right there. Because at that very moment, I was gifted with somebody telling me that those little moments that we give, that we invest in others, can make really big impacts that we are oblivious to. Don't lose hope in what you're doing. Don't lose that support and that joy within you in what you're doing and what you're capable of being and doing by just the little things, because there's a lot of people who are very grateful for those. And that's what, for me, finding hope is all about. That's why my private practice, where I do therapy and consultation, is about finding hope. That is why my book is about finding hope. And that's where the Faith of God is about finding hope, because life is very challenging, I think, across the board for all of us. So I actually have a few slides that I wanted to share to kind of talk about some of this and the relevance to all of us. As I'm talking about this, I want to show you this scripture that I think of probably most relevant to my life is I think of in Philippians. So Philippians is really powerful to me because it says, you know, this man is in prison, and it is one of the most joyful books of the Bible. And yet he is in prison as he writes this. And in verse 20, it says, "For I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Christ as I've been in the past. And I trust that my life will be honor, whether I live or whether I die." So what he's saying in there is whatever we've been through, whatever our challenges are, whether they're big by our perceptions or little, it doesn't matter. God hears us, and he's going to use those and help us persevere through the life with the goals that we have in whatever professions you work in, ministry you work in, personal lives. How often people in human services, my husband's in law enforcement, how often we go to work with great intentions and we come home, and home is tough and we're exhausted. And we have to role model, and I will talk about that, these skills of finding hope in our personal and professional lives to be the greatest thing that God made us to be, and sharing those gifts that people like you have touched my life with. So the first thing that I talk about in any of my services is I really talk about how acceptance is a strength, because the concept that life is tough. Acceptance that life is tough. Now, this may seem like the other side of the cup here. You're like, well, that's kind of negative, and that doesn't really match your personality. There's more to that, all right? But the first thing is to acknowledge that life is tough. And that's really a concept we have to teach those we work with. If you work with children from hard places, if you work with adults who have addictions or struggles, or you yourself, just accepting that it's going to be a tough situation and something that we cannot change necessarily every detail of. And it's going to be a challenge. However, as we learn that concept, we're able to grow in it. So what I talk about with this, then I learned that life was tough was when I was in my biological parents' home. Up until the age of 12, I lived in a very, very emotionally, physically abusive home. I was confined in a very, very small bedroom. I was deprived of food, showers. I wasn't allowed to share the same vicinities of my siblings in the home. I would go to school and steal things and take food and get the police called. And there was a lot of things that I felt like this isn't fair, and that it's supposed to be better. Like, how often does society give us the concept that life is supposed to be easy and great? God never said that. The world doesn't say that it's going to be easy and challenging. I mean, the whole book of Job, if you want to go flip through that, it wasn't easy for him. And in Psalms, it's chapter 4, I believe, that King David is saying, release me from this. It is so challenging. It is so tough. And so there's a reality that we need to accept within ourselves, but also help those that we work with, or kids or adults from hard places, that accepting that life is a tough thing. That doesn't mean that that's our stopping ground. That doesn't mean that that is all life is. And the other thing is knowing that some of you who work in ministry or foster care or foster parenting or whatever, sometimes what we do that is the right thing to do can make it more challenging. I hope that that's not true, but I think in the real world, it probably is. Has anybody done anything that's good and morally right for kids, for families who are hurting, for people who don't know Christ, and then they realize, oh, that just made my life a little more challenging? I know I have. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't mean that things are going to get easier, but refusing to stop there, being able to accept it, is going to persevere us to that next step. So what it actually does, and what I'm talking about here, is the fact that accepting that life is tough is what gives us, as professionals, as parents, as youth, they actually gives us that inner strength. To accept that gives us the power to change something else than trying to change the fact that life is going to be tough. We're not being realistic if we want that to be what we change. Instead, we find value in the little things, and we begin to find strength from things that maybe aren't really, really big, but can be of big impact. So what am I talking about? When I was younger, I remember a couple situations where it helped me as a child from hard places really know that even though life is tough, I can persevere through it and I have strength within me. And that would be when my neighbor would give me a little box of juice. It's like about this big, you know, if you have little kids like us, we have a daughter who we've adopted. She's 3 and she spills the juice everywhere, right? Which it's one of those, okay? And so my neighbor would give me one of these every time she saw me because she felt really bad. And she's like, oh, you're thirsty and you're hungry. And she probably had no idea how grateful and how impactful that was for me. And I didn't know at the time either. But now I'm able to say that right there, that's helping me find inner strength. Somebody giving me that drink said I mattered. My stomach mattered, gave me energy to persevere. I had a social worker that I hated. Anybody have been a social worker that somebody didn't like? Or in child welfare? Yeah, maybe. I felt like I hated that person. But the cool thing that I remember now about that social worker is they were consistent in my life. And it was the one person that I was able to have negative emotions towards, and they were still okay with me. They were still okay with me. So sometimes we are doing way more in our work than we're going to know at the time. And it's going to be tough and it's going to be challenging. And we're going to say, oh my gosh, why am I doing what I'm doing? And on the other side of that pendulum, there are kids like me who those little things added up and changed my life. On the other end of the spectrum, when I can click this slide here, when life is tough, there's other parts that come up. Here you go. I'm going to try that again. If you can see the screen. Zoom the slideshow. When you pair the fact that our life is challenging, I mean, how many of us, let me think of this for a second, thought that when we were turning 18, it was going to be great? Shirley, yes. Rhonda says yes. Arnold, you? Oh, Arnold, I didn't think you were going to raise your hand. Oh, okay. So we probably all are going to raise our hand to this. You know, we think there's this magic wand of which I haven't found yet. And so this is a norm. This is not something we should be shameful of or embarrassed of because we have this expectation. And then life shows us that adulthood doesn't change of being easy or not. It's still a challenge, but we are provided with skills that help us persevere through it. So the next component is when life is tough, whether you're working as a professional in these fields, whether you're a parent or whether you're a kid or a young adult or living through the parts of a hard life, remembering that you are tough too. And that's what makes life being tough so tolerable, because we are equipped with those strengths. And there's a wholeness to us being tough that we were created to be. And that's from people like you. That's from the gifts of who we are, the challenges we faced. One of those things of we wouldn't necessarily value something if we hadn't had a challenge with it yet. It's that same concept that we're sharing with others. So when life is tough and we pair it with action, we are becoming the strong, whole people that we are. So a part of that is to learn how to heal, and then also limiting the things that we do, getting support, reducing the stigma of mental health, that even we, if we're middle class, if we're upper class, if we're lower class, we all have the same minds and we all have challenges in life. And so we all have the right to seeking help. Because did you know that 65% of our population in America are visually stimulated people? So we learn and we focus more on visual. When you think of those from hard places, most of them learn also through visual, not audio, because they don't trust the audio. They don't trust the words. They want to see it into action. And us in our role modeling is so impactful. If you say something and then you do different, take care of yourself. Work on that addiction. Believe in yourself. Have good self-esteem. Talk to somebody when you're hurt. but you don't do that, what will that person think? What will they believe more? Probably your actions. So role model that we can do that. So for instance, when I was in foster care, so when I was 12, I went into foster care, a lot of homes, a lot of challenges, never did get reintegrated, had some good experiences and some not so good experiences, but I went to a lot of therapy between them, and that's okay. It's great to have those outside people to give us different perspectives. And I'm sitting here telling parents, this is why I left child welfare directly, is I was telling these parents who were in reintegration and their kids were in foster care, and I would say to them, you need to find time for self-care. You need to spend time with your family. Don't prioritize your dollars this way. Communicate with your significant other. And then I would go home, and here I was working 12, 14 hours a day. I'd be irritable with my husband. I would be impatient with my kids. I would be emotionally distraught. And I thought, man, I'm not being true to what I'm saying to them. That's the way I'm going to role model it the best, is to take care of myself, setting those limits, destigmatizing mental health. Did you know in the Bible, there are many, 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 many times that it talks about taking care of ourselves. The more you're going to be able to prepare those that you work with, the things that you love to do or want to do, is to prepare and equip yourself to do that with the whole you. If you only take care of part of you, then you're only going to have part of you to give to your efforts. Taking care of you. In scripture, so many times, Jesus would take time with just him and Christ. There are so many scriptures that talk about taking care of yourself. He gave us the gift of rest for a reason, and this is very hard in human services. And I can say that as a social worker and a husband in law enforcement, learning and role modeling that to our kids. Saying no versus saying yes. So what that's meaning is, when we say no versus when we say yes, if you're going to say yes to say something, saying yes with a reason behind it. What are you called to do? Are you saying, sometimes we tend to say yes to things, like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. And we're doing it to please other people rather than to really being able to do what we love to do. And what happens is we lose the time and ability to do what we are called to do. So I always kind of say, the way we say no is, unless we have a reason to say yes. Yes, because a personal reason I'm saying yes, I love little kids. So yes, I will help at that daycare deal at church because I love kids on Sundays. Otherwise, I should probably say no. That makes sense? Understanding that concept. And then loving what you do to do what you love. We are in a world where we are busy, busy, busy. And we are so busy. Whether you're a kid in foster care and you're thinking of that moment to moment to moment of just trauma, and that covers our view of the bigger life, or whether you're an adult and just working in a busy life, we are taught to be busy. And that construes and limits us from what we are actually supposed to be doing. So making sure that if you're busy, are you doing what you're called to be doing when you're busy? How are you delegating your time? Is it for you and what you are called to do? This is not a conceited concept. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing for those other people? Did you know these are concepts you can learn and you can teach these kids in high school, middle school? This is what I learned in foster care. I know these things not because just being an adult learning them. People like you touched me to learn about these. People like you showed me what I did want, or maybe what I didn't want in those. So the example I'm going to tell you on this is one of the schools I went to, I had this really cool PE teacher, loved her to death. By the way, I hate PE. I'm like totally not into the physical, let's go run and whatever. If any of you are and you want to brag about it, please tell us in the conversation afterwards, because I'm in admiration of you. Otherwise, she was just a cool person, okay? She was loving, she was unconditional. I was 14 years old. So they gave me a part-time job at their work to care for me, things like that. And then I realized, oh man, I really want this family. I really wanted to live with a family. I've always had the desire, which most of us, I think all of us do. We want to be wanted. And I would ask her if I could live with her. And you know what she told me? No. Yeah. One of the greatest things she could have done, because she knew she was incapable of providing the care that I needed. And she was setting boundaries for herself while still showing me that love, that time, and that effort. There was nothing wrong with that. And she taught me a lot in still supporting me in other ways. So she was using her skills to teach me things, but also to give me that love in the way she was capable. And you know what? She did that all through saying a no, which is still okay. And still memorable to me, by the way. All these things, these little moments, don't ever think we forget them. Because I remember when that cook gave me those extra donuts. Or now as an adult, I see a lot of people who did something for me that I'm like, oh, you're the one who did that. Thank you. You may not get recognition or even confirmation for what you've done for many, many, many years, or maybe not even until we're in the kingdom of heaven, but you will get it. You will. So keep doing those little moments as they matter and they change lives like mine. I'm not going to go over these right now, but I can send them out. These are just some different scriptures that actually talk about resting, taking breaks, setting those limits so that we are equipped to do what God has called us to do. And then the last concept that I talk about a lot with finding hope is that when we accept that life is tough, and we pair that with action that we also are tough, are strong, that's when we're able to find the ability of hope. And hope is what perseveres through us in our lives, whatever our lives are, whatever our conditions are, whatever happens, you know, when we lose people, because grief is inevitable in life, loss is inevitable. There's things in life that is just darn tough. And the hope of something more, something greater, something grand, and the hope of our lives within it is what helps us persevere. So there's a couple definitions of what hope is. Hope supports faith. It supports resiliency. It's a mind shift of, oh yeah, we're in a COVID epidemic and this is terrible, terrible, tough stuff. Or we're in an epidemic and wow, look at some of the new changes that are going on. Look at what I can do instead of what I can't. It's a mind shift, an uncomfortable one at times. Joy, I talk about joy as that internal joy that we're all seeking. And remember the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness is temporary. Joy is a deeper inner peace. But also, has anybody, I can't see everybody, but you can raise your hand, thumbs up, whatever. Have you heard of joy as Jesus, others, and yourself? Yeah, okay, some of you are saying yeah. So I had a pastor that was telling me about joy before, of Jesus, others, and yourself. So I 100% agree with that. In this conversation, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to challenge it. Because what I'm going to say is, of course, Jesus. And then there's the O and the Y. And the O and the Y is actually reciprocal. Some of us are in a condition where we can provide for others. But eventually we have to take care of ourselves so that we can again provide to others. Some of us are in a condition where we need to actually start with the why. And we need to be taking care of ourselves so that eventually we can give to others. When I was a kid in care, before I went through a lot of therapy, before I went through a pretty serious brain surgery, where my husband and I said at the age of 20 from abuse that this is something that we're not sure if you're going to come back or not. That's a time when I needed to take care of myself, to find healing, to talk to somebody, to get medical treatment, so that this many years later, I can come back and share it with others. You might be on one side or the other, but they're reciprocal, is what I say. And I think Jesus shows that, and a lot of people show us that in scripture, that there is a cycle of caring for ourselves and caring for others. And we are equipped to do both in their times. Hope also provides social, emotional, physical, mental health, and healing. So when I talk about that wholeness of finding hope, accepting our emotions, that we're okay. It's okay that we're angry. It's okay that we're hurt. It's okay, and we have the right to the feelings. Those are very different than the actions. But even as adults, when we're frustrated with child welfare systems or political stances or broken people, or I think Rhonda says the word grieving of things, it just, burns you there. Being able to have resources to help you heal through those, act on those, or however it is, so that you can continue having that wholeness. Doing these things also influence generational changes. Wherever you work, whatever you do, you might actually work on interventions of generational changes, but also, did you know that what you do, who you talk to, who you influence through your behaviors can also influence generations? You have a family, you have people who trust you. You are making an impact in that. Don't ever lose sight of how powerful you yourself can be on influencing others longitudinally for lives. Being able to find hope also gives us purposeful living. If we're sitting here trying to find an easy life and we get frustrated with that, then we get lost in our purpose of living. And so being able to accept that it's tough, acknowledging choices and strengths that we bring to the table allows us to live our life on purpose, with purposeful living, no matter what happens around us. Man, isn't that a way I want to feel every day? Oh, I don't feel well today. And by the way, my coffee doesn't taste right. That's a big deal for me, okay? If my coffee doesn't taste right. But it's okay, because I still have a purpose for my life today. What a great way to make it through hard times. And then ultimately, that gives us the freedom and the ability to have what we call action-based love, which is why all of you are in this group, while you're all here, of what Rhonda talks about, of loving with our actions, with our gifts, of all those things with life was being tough, the things we've experienced and continue to work towards, gives us that action. Isn't that cool? I mean, each of you have that and find that and continue to build it. We are not the greatest versions of ourselves, today and not tomorrow. We are continually becoming the greatest versions of ourselves. And so continue pursuing that. I mean, who you are today is amazing and awesome. And who you are tomorrow, well, that is also amazing and awesome. And so continue persevering and pursuing that. So what I do is, like I said, I do consultation, training, speaking, things like that. I work at the school, but then what Rhonda was talking about, which hopefully will detail more and using my story, is my book, The Art of Healing of Hardships. And these are actually the different concepts that I go through, but the ones that I went through today are actually my top ones of accepting life is tough and that it is tolerable. And then eventually how we're able to find hope with those skills. So that is that for this part of it. And I love to share how all the time people come into my life that surprise me, surprise others, that we can reconcile and sometimes even clarify what's happened in our lives or the impacts that people have had. And it's very, very healing as we grow. When I had kids, that in itself was a challenge, because when you look in the mirror and you see a biological family in your child, that's something that I had to talk to somebody about so that I didn't put that onto my child. There's so many different concepts that we lose sight of in the hard challenges that we forget how much other people are here to help and equip us while we continue doing the amazing things that we do. So for each of you, I just want you to walk away kind of knowing that, yes, you matter in a statement of you matter, but those little moments matter. those of you who give me those little smiles during these type of things, I always say this, or the wink or the giggle when I'm really not that funny, but I think I'm funny, and so you giggle at me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my person. That moment mattered. That little of a moment can change a life. And so thank you for what you do, what you will do, and who each of you are and will become. Ms. Rhonda.
That's beautiful, Amber. Thank you. So if you have questions, put them in the chat, and Amber can go through and call on you. I think I started it off. I'll just say my question, Amber, so you don't have to read it. But how do you respond to someone that you're trying to help who's hopeless? Maybe somebody who's exhibiting suicidal ideation, and I'm not a social worker. I'm not in mental health. I could pray, and then after that, I don't know what to do. So you try to give them help, you do the best you can, and they are just not hearing it because they're immersed in their hopelessness. And so then they lash out at you. Then what would you say in that situation?
I think sitting where somebody is so important. Being authentic with who they are at that very moment. That's true to how they're feeling. That may not be true to the whole world, but in their view of the world, that's where they are. And so helping them open that view a little bit. Everybody's a little different, but sitting there and making sure, first and foremost, are they safe? And if they're not safe, ensuring they're safe. So that could be helping them call a mental health or a facility or something. In my opinion, God gave the gift of medicine for a reason. And there are some people, and when you look at the research of trauma, there are neurological effects of trauma. When you look at the ACEs test, if you've heard of those, it shows that there's physiological components when we come to trauma. And so sometimes there is a medical need that we need to have a professional help them with. So connecting them with the resources. Other times talking with them and just hearing where they're at and being there with them, and you don't have to say you don't have hope, but you also don't have to force, and you can't force the belief that they do. You walk with them to find that within themselves. So being there. And isn't that, again, what I said earlier, what we're all wanting is we want to be wanted. And that's showing somebody you're wanted and you matter.
Yeah, that's really good. There were some responses in the chat. Lisa said, I feel like that is when all I can do is pray and keep loving them and allowing the Holy Spirit to lead me with them. That's so good, Lisa.
Yes.
And Danny said, I asked God to show me how he sees them. Ooh, that's really good too. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Amber? Do you want to, I think you can unmute everybody. I don't think I can unmute anybody now.
Sure, yeah.
Wilma Flintstone.
Can you take the control back? I can give it to you, or however I can give it to you.
I don't know how to do it. Oh, reclaim host. That's how I did it. Oh, boom, shakalaka. I think I just did it. Okay, so how do I unmute everybody? Ask all to unmute. Okay, so now you should have a little thing in front of you that says that you can touch and it unmutes you. So we can all talk. Oh, I hear sounds. Okay, cool. So anybody?
Hopefully it's Connie's Ocean.
Yes.
I can hear it.
Yeah.
I know we have some other social workers on the call today, and I know we have a pastor, and there's a social worker, lawyer, foster mom, criminal prosecutor I just now see you, Debbie. So
I'm driving down the road. That's how I spend a good chunk of my life.
Your second office.
That's right. You always see me in the car. So
yeah. So, and any other questions or comments? No? Okay. So, oh, Diana, you're muted. I see your lips moving.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
Go.
Sorry, I'm on crutches, so I just didn't. I've been, keeping myself video off, and this is how beautiful I look right now. But I just wanted to comment on how amazing I think Amber is as a person, and everything that she's dealt with and come through on the other side, and how coming from childhood trauma myself, I'm still a work in progress. We talk about that all the time, right? But what she's doing, the gift that she has, and the always smiling Amber Jewell, it's just inspiring to me every single time I hear words coming out of her mouth. Just wanted to say that.
I feel the same way. I'm going to circle back with you to find out why you're on crutches, girl. See, I think it has something to do with working out. She's our fitness person. See what happens when you go to the gym? It probably wasn't even the gym, but I'm going to use that now to stay out of there. Those dangerous places. I agree with what Diana just said, Amber. Really, it's truly remarkable in all the years that I've worked around foster care. I've seen people literally in their 70s and 80s still talking about and feeling the pain of what happened to them when they were 5 years old. And I don't mean to minimize anything. I went through some really traumatic things when I was a little kid too, but at some point in time, it doesn't matter whether it was, child abuse or whatever hardship that we've been through, there comes a point, I think, in everybody's life where we need to say, okay, that's it. I'm not going to give that trauma one more minute of my life. No, I'm not. And I don't know when that happened with you or how that happened, if you even had that kind of a moment or if it was kind of a gradual thing, but it's obviously happened and inspiration.
Right. Yeah, I think that a part of that, sorry, Connie, just a second, is giving ourselves some grace. It's a process that's individualized for each of us, and giving grace if something happens that we take a step back, or joy when we take that step forward, being as authentic as Jenny would say, with those we work with, or maybe they're in our personal families, being able to be patient with them as we would ourselves, and treating ourselves as we would with them, I think helps a lot. And not having unrealistic expectations. We're all different. We all have different experiences and gifts. And thank you, Lord, that there's not too many of me out there, because I don't know that we could handle that. And we're all finding joy in the individualism that we get to work with. So.
Beautiful. Connie.
I was going to add that when we're working with somebody, talking with somebody, relating with somebody that's in pain, we don't always smile because it's painful. Sometimes, when I'm talking to a person, it breaks my heart too, and I cry. I mean, not like a breakdown kind of cry, but empathetic to trying to put my feet in their shoes and walk a little while with them, whether it's something that happened to me too or it didn't. Sometimes we cry together, and that is a way to show them that they matter, and then maybe they'll open up, or maybe they'll be willing to receive it, or maybe it's a process. So sometimes it's crying with them too, giving them a Kleenex, giving me a Kleenex till we get to the next phase.
Well, Miss Valentine girl with your Valentine scarf on, I love that you shared that. And I just want everybody to know, Connie has worked with kids primarily boys, but girls too, who were severely abused, and for, I don't know, I'm just going to say a lifetime, because her daddy did the same thing. So she grew up around Michigan Teen Ranch, and then she was the CEO of Valley Teen Ranch in Fresno for many, many years. So we won't know until we get to heaven how many lives Connie has touched. And so thank you for sharing that. I know you are the expert on how to do that. So,
Thank you. And I'm retired, but people still come in my life that are hurting and broken and need hope. So
and
I
a
call
lot of
myself a
those,
hope dealer.
yes, you are.
Oh, I say hope. I think, Danny, you said one of the acronyms. I say helping other people every day.
Yes.
HOPE.
Yeah.
And that's your book, Connie. Say the name of your book.
Choices, how to improve your relationships in your life.
Yep. And it's very good. And it's very simple. And anybody, even kids, could pick it up and read it and do it. And that's what I love about that. So I got a text from the representative of Teen Leadership Foundation that I promised that you would hear from. And she has food poisoning from calamari last night. And so I think the moral of the story is don't eat calamari unless you're getting it from my house that my husband made, then it's just perfect. So I'm going to just tell you just a quick little overview of Teen Leadership Foundation. This fabulous executive in the apparel industry who was flying on private jets to France to go to fashion shows when she was 18 years old. She was a kind of a big deal in fashion, had like an Apostle Paul moment on her way to a fashion deal, actually in Las Vegas on the 15 freeway, and she had to pull over because the Holy Spirit was telling her, what are you doing with your life? She quit her big bad job and she sold her BMW and she sold her condo, and she founded Teen Leadership Foundation for the purpose of taking teens in foster care and helping them to establish their own lives. We would say, I guess in child welfare, we would say independent living and all that. But I've seen independent living skills programs that kids come out of. And in fact, Debbie just shared a study that was recently released with me. I just looked at it yesterday and it was like mind blown, where kids are coming out of independent living skills programs and are worse off in measurable ways than kids who went through independent living skills program. I want to tell you that at Teen Leadership Foundation, and you can say, you can look it up, teenleadershipfoundation.org. These kids are doing fabulously. So what they did is they bought an apartment complex, and they did it actually with help of some people in a church who figured out how to get municipal bond money. I don't even know what I just said, but they're willing to help anybody in any community who wants to do this. Oh yeah, I'll put the link in there. Thanks, Danny. You're such a smarty pant guy. So they bought this apartment complex. So the kids live in the apartment complex. A social worker lives in one of the units. They took like the little recreation kind of a room that was there, and they turned it into Frameworks imaging. They raised the money to buy the machines or whatever it is that makes screen print t-shirts. So they make custom screen print t-shirts, and the kids do the work. And the kids do the merchandising, and the kids do the customer service, and the kids do the books, and the kids handle customer service calls, and they're learning about work ethic. Hello, work ethic. I think there are so many kids coming out of independent living skills programs and kids coming out of the average families on our streets who have never actually heard the words work ethic and thought about applying that to their lives. And so these kids are coming out of teen leadership and they're getting jobs and they're getting their own places. And they are, as I often say, that kids who have been from hard places are often the best employee in the place because they have what I call survivor work ethic. They want so badly to do well and hear well done that they'll just, you know, work their tail off. And that's what these kids are doing. So I'll put this in here. I think it's Teen Leadership Foundation. And I'm so sorry that you didn't get to hear it from my friend Lisa Castetter, who had her, you know, come to Jesus meeting on the 15 freeway on the way to Nevada. But she literally changed her whole life. And now she's helping people in communities all over the United States establish teen leadership in their own communities. And I see that Debbie put the link to that study in the chat. So take a look at that. And then I think we're just about there. We're in the month of February, the month of Valentine Weenie Day, and the month of love. We're sending an email every single day with stories of how people have put their love into action. Danny, I know you sent me something and I have to respond to you. I'm still trying to line them up, but I want everybody, if you have a story to share, pick up your phone and create a little videotape, or you could just write it out and send it to me. And let me send it out to our audience. And I want you guys to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and ask others to subscribe, because we know that love, and those of us who are Christians, we know that love is with a capital L. We know who that is, not what that is. Love is the only sustainable change agent. No matter how broken, wounded, miserable, grouchy, irritable somebody is, love is really the only thing that sustainably heals us.
Yeah.
So we can love people into wholeness with our words and actions and the way we put our love into action. And so I just, you're here and I love that. I'm so glad that you're here. And I hope that you'll subscribe. You just loveisaction.com/subscribe and ask everybody you know to subscribe and encourage others to send their stories in. I just think that the more we hear how other people are putting their love into action, the more inspired we all are. So thank you for being here today. And if you have any other questions, comments, or whatever, speak up now before we end the meeting.
I do.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say thanks for doing this. And Amber, excuse me, you don't know this, but way back when I was in high school, my high school counselor's name was Jewell. And I often thought over the years, what a jewel of a person to have given me the advice she gave me, which mostly was, there's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. Don't go off and try and do everything on your own, which I have a tendency to do. But she also said to persevere and, you know, to overcome. But just you are a jewel, and I appreciate everything that I learned from you today. I just met you. So good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. That's so sweet. And Amber is our jewel. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. And kisses, Diana. I see your kisses. Mwah. I'm just so grateful for all of you. And I'm sorry we didn't get to chitty chat ahead of time. I didn't realize everybody was waiting to come in. So Wilma Flintstone messed up the meeting. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm a
Building
wonderful
the anticipation, Rhonda. That's what that was.
That was it. That was it. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm grateful for each of you. God
too.
bless you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.